Welcome to another episode of Bold and Beautiful. I'm Kia Cordo, and I'm so glad that you've joined me. We are in the middle, almost smack dab in the middle of 2026, and that is super exciting. So, welcome to June. We are halfway through the year. I began this year with a 7-day vision board challenge. Hopefully, you downloaded that. That was free. So, go check out that podcast to get that down, that blueprint if you had not done so yet, and start planning. Plan. It doesn't matter where you are at this point, but I just want to talk about that for a little bit. If you did do that challenge and you've read it down and you've been walking through that, all those through the details of what you visioned and what God has given you for your life, your dreams, your goals, your objectives, your plan for the future, for the present and the future, then take inventory. Number one, take inventory of where you are right now and where you want to be. Now, for those of us who have had some obstacles come in the way, or maybe technical problems, if you will, have to go back. I often do that. I will look back at my list. I'll look back at the things that I've accomplished. I don't necessarily do that every single day, but I definitely go back and say, okay, where am I right now? What have you put in my heart to do, God? And what have I accomplished? What have we accomplished? And take inventory. So I think that's the very first, the most important thing to do at the start here is to take inventory of where you are. Again, we're halfway through the year, which is crazy, right? Time moves, whether you like it or not. That's just the way it is, right? I feel like the older we get, the older I get, I should say, time moves a little bit faster. So I don't know if time is moving faster or I'm moving slower. I'm not sure. But at any rate, I got to take inventory. So I checked out my list, and hopefully you'll check out yours as well. And I said, okay, I did this, I accomplished that. Okay, this one needs a little bit more tweaking. This needs a little bit more strategizing. And I haven't gotten to this part yet, because you can't do everything all in one day, right? Rome was not built in a day, as they say. So halfway through the year, it's not time to give up. Halfway through the year, it's not time to quit. We're not quitters. Hello, ladies. We are not quitters. But it is time to take inventory. Oftentimes, I want to just point out is that sometimes when we do go back and we look, we take inventory, we see where we are, where we thought we would be June of 2026 or in the mid-year or wherever you are basing your time frame on. And we recognize, and oh my goodness, I haven't gotten to where I expected to be. I'm not where I should be right now. And we get stuck. Don't get stuck. It's Don't get stuck. Okay. Come on and tell yourself, don't get stuck. I refuse to allow myself to get stuck. Why? Because getting stuck is not going to cause you to have any kind of movement forward. It's going to pull you backwards, and you're going to lose all the ground that you started. You lose all the ground that you gained. Okay. So oftentimes when we are at that point and we're taking inventory and we're recognizing that we are not where we'd want to be at this moment, guilt or disappointment comes in, it creeps in, maybe even some fear. Maybe there's some things on your list and in your dreams or on your goals that you haven't moved forward with because you were afraid. The Bible tells us so many times, over and over and over, God spoke to the people of Israel. He spoke to the prophets, the people who were at the top of the mountain at the height of their game. He said over and over, do not fear. Why? Several reasons. One, fear has torment. It will torment us. It will keep us up at night. It will keep us from sleeping. It will cloud our vision and we won't see clearly. I was reading a book recently. It's a fiction book, but this quote just stuck out to me, and I want to read it to you because I thought it was appropriate. A character was talking to another character, and it says, my father taught me that fear makes everything predictable. Animal or human, they all run the same patterns. It makes them vulnerable and easy to trap. And in this point, he was talking about, he'd grown up on a farm, this particular character, and as he was talking to an employer, and they were talking about his skills to understand and to recognize the ability or the capability of fear upon a person, or in this case also an animal. And it made me think, this quickened in my spirit, about how the enemy tracks us, how the devil just watches us. He's very patient. He watches us, he watches our movements, he watches our thought processes, he watches our actions, and he tracks the fear. He tracks us to determine if there is fear that is driving us forward or holding us back. And when he does that, we hope maybe you've heard this over and over, is that the devil doesn't try any new tricks because his old ones work. And that's often the case, is that when we become afraid, it causes us to be stuck. It causes us to quit. It causes us not to move forward, but to slide backwards or to give up our plans, give up the things that God has put in our hearts to move forward with. And so the enemy tracks us and traps us, okay? Doesn't try any new things. He's patient and he's waiting. So if you're at that point where you feel like, you know what, I'm not where I expected to be right now. I'm not where I thought I'd be. I'm not where I even planned on being right now. I'm not seeing the progress I'd like to see. Don't get stuck there. Don't allow yourself to be disappointed. Don't allow yourself to feel guilt or to feel shame that you've not put in the work or you've not made it to where you want to be right now, because the devil is tracking your thoughts. He's tracking your mindset. He's tracking your actions or lack of action to discover, okay, how am I going to continue to trip this person up? How am I going to trip her up? Right? So don't allow the enemy. The Bible tells us to resist the devil and he will flee from you. Hold steadfast to God. Resist the devil. Okay? Because he knows when you're running scared. He knows when you're running scared, when fear is tormenting you. I thought, there are so many times as a parent, myself personally, where I made decisions surrounding my children because I was afraid. I was afraid this would happen to them, or they'd make the wrong decisions, or I wasn't being a good parent, or, if I gave them this freedom, then something horrible would happen. And so I often, in hindsight, of course, often based my decisions, many of my decisions, on fear of the enemy doing to them what the enemy had done to me when I was growing up, or decisions that I had made in the process that I had taken that took me down the wrong path as a young person or as a young adult. And so I insulated my kids oftentimes out of fear. Of course, recognizing this later on, and having these conversations with my now adult children, that fear is no way to make decisions. They will always turn out bad. If you're basing your decisions on fear, that will be tormenting. And you'll always be wondering, okay, what did I do? What did I miss? You'll be looking over your shoulder. Your foundation cannot be strong if it's based out of fear. And that's what we're building here. We're building strong foundations. Remember, this is bold and beautiful. This is where we live life boldly. And we cannot live life boldly and with strength when our foundation has cracks of fear in it. So hopefully that will help you and encourage you. As I've sat down and just had conversations and looking back over our lives as a family, and I've talked to my adult children about this, is that, many times, they kind of felt like they were overly protected. And I thought, well, I didn't want you to end up here. I didn't want you to go there. I didn't want you to have these friends. I wanted to get rid of those friends, all of these different things. And I had to come to grips with, oh my goodness, Lord, I made that particular decision because I was afraid. I was afraid something would happen. And I didn't trust God fully to say, God, you've got them. You've got this situation, and then teach them how to discern for themselves. So there was always that little element of fear, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, that I had to work through. And so don't let yourself go through the things that I did, whether it's in your life, in your children's lives, and in your family. Okay, so take inventory. Move past disappointment, move past guilt for not moving forward, not moving faster, not doing your due diligence. with whatever dream and vision God put in your heart to do. And then let's go. Let's move forward. We're halfway through the year. It's time to move forward. I was reminded of Nehemiah, which is an incredible story where Nehemiah has this heart, passion, and compassion for the people of Israel and rebuilding his homeland, rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. And so I went to the book of Nehemiah. I just want to read a couple of scriptures for you here and talk about what it took for him to go back to his homeland to rebuild these walls and how quickly it took him to rebuild. It says in the beginning of Nehemiah, it says, it came to pass in the month of Kislev in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan, the citadel, that Hanani, one of my brethren, came with the men from Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews who had escaped, who had survived the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said to me, the survivors who are left from the captivity in the province are there in great distress and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is also broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. And so it was when I heard these words that I sat down and wept and mourned for many days. I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. So Nehemiah asks of the situation. He wants sort of a sit rep of what's happened in Jerusalem, what's going on with the people. And it struck his heart. He sat down, he wept, he went before God with prayer and fasting. He said, God, we've got to do something about this. Direct me, show me, give me the strategy. What can I do? What do I need to do? He fasted, he prayed. He used strategy. And if you read through the book of Nehemiah, you'll see some of that strategy. First of all, he recognized that God was God, that he was the Almighty God, that he is the God of heavens and the God of earth, and that he had sent a commandment. He said that he would rebuild the city. He would care for the people of Israel. They are his people and he is their God. And so Nehemiah reminded God of that aspect. He also repented for the people of Israel for falling away from God, for following after false gods. He repented for himself and for the nation. And he said, God, help us to rebuild. Show me the plan. Give me favor. Cause us to prosper. And so several months later, I love this. This prayer, this report that he received was in the month of Kislev, it says, in the 20th year of the month of Kislev, which is sort of the autumn months of on the Hebrew calendar. And there's a time of miracles and a time after, Yom Kippur. So there's several months in between there. And there's this time where he went before the Lord. But by the springtime, where there's a newness and a new day, he goes before the king, Artaxerxes, whom he's a servant of, and he's asking God for favor and to prosper him. And so this is in the month of, the scripture says in chapter 2, that it came to pass in the month of Nisan in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, and I took it, I gave it to the king. And he said he had never been so sad in the presence before. In this time, and if you go back and read the scriptures in Nehemiah, it talks about how Nehemiah had favor in sight of the king. And he asked the king, and he said to the king, I'd like to go to my homeland and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And the king, Nehemiah, found favor in front of King Artaxerxes. And because God had given it to him, it was a new day. It was a new season that God was birthing. And not only did King Artaxerxes send him, he asked him how long it would be. Nehemiah gave him a time frame, but he also financed it. He wasn't his God, it wasn't his homeland, but Nehemiah had favor. He went before God. God put it in his heart, put the plan and the purpose in his heart. He went before the king. The king granted him not only favor, but finances to complete the task. The story continues to tell us that this was the fastest that anything like this had ever been done. Nehemiah succeeded in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem in 52 days, something that was unheard of. And it wasn't easy, folks. It wasn't easy. There were obstacles, there were threats, there were assassination threats, there were tricks, there was bribery, there was all kinds of, action movie, motion picture things going on during this time frame where Nehemiah was focused on getting this job done. There were people who were trying to persuade him, people who lied to him, people who were trying to destroy him in front of his people as he was leading them to rebuild this wall the walls as quickly as possible. And they did not succeed because he had God's strategy. I'm reminded of when my kids were little and they were in school. Our kids' first grade teacher, our older ones, Mrs. Labaka. And the kids would do something and it would be difficult and it would be hard, her students. And she would always say, look, do your best, let God do the rest. And so I remember Cherie coming home from school all the time and, with the hundreds or with the A's. And then sometimes maybe she'd get a B and she's like, I was trying so hard, and she'd say, and then Mrs. Labaka would encourage her and say, Cherie, don't worry. Don't get so stressed about this. You do your best and let God do the rest. It's all going to come out. And oftentimes we would remind the kids of this and we would say, do your best. And then they would repeat, let God do the rest. Sometimes our kids would remind us, Mom, Dad, do your best. And we'd have to repeat it because kids are really good for that, reminding you of what you're teaching them, right? So that we're learning together. That's just a God thing. I think that's how God teaches us to stay humble, right? But reminded with this and with your plan, with your vision board this year, or with your plan for your future in 2026, 2027, in the next 5 years, whatever that looks like for you, in the next 10 years, whatever that looks like for you, is that if you do what you're supposed to do, and you submit it to God, because He's already put it in your heart, God will give you the strategies. He will help you navigate over those obstacles. He will help you navigate and discern what's true and what the enemy is trying to use to destroy you and to remove your focus from what you have put in your heart to do, what you have set out to do, what you have planned to do, what you have written down to do. God will give you the strategies. He will give you the wherewithal. He will give you the finances. He will give you the resources that you need to keep going forward. So keep walking. Take that next step. That's the third point I want to make. Move forward because one step is better than no steps. When you're not taking any steps, you start going backwards. You forget why you even set out to begin with. You don't remember. It's like walking into the kitchen from another room and you're like, wait, why did I come in here again? Okay, that does happen to me often. I don't know. But when you have something that is important, right? Not potatoes or whatever, when you have something that is important, then you want to stay focused on it. You want to write that down because there are so many things that vie for your time. They are fighting for your time. They're fighting for your energy. They're fighting for your focus. And not all those things are bad things, but they can become obstacles that get in the way of your purpose. Okay. So don't get disappointed. Don't feel shame. Don't feel guilt where where you felt like you've fallen short. We all fall short. We all get off track sometimes, but that's okay. God has given you favor to pursue the dreams and the purpose that He's put in your heart to do. Take Nehemiah. It took 52 days. The Bible tells us, and the story here tells us that was unheard of. It was a miraculous thing. Why? Because God was with Nehemiah and he refused to give up and quit on his focus for rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. He refused to be persuaded otherwise, to get off task. He refused, and he didn't fall into the traps that the enemy set before him. So there's several things that we can take from this. He stayed focused. He asked for strategy, and God gave him strategy. But in the middle of that strategy, he also had to be aware of what tools the enemy was trying to use to trap him and to assassinate him and to get him off track and to destroy his reputation among the people that were working with him. He excuse me, he refused to fall prey to the enemy's devices. So remember the quote I gave you earlier. It says that fear makes everything predictable. So don't be predictable. Don't allow the enemy to use fear or to use doubt or to use your lack of focus to get you off track. That's a lie. That's a tool that he uses because he's the father of lies. And he wants you to feel like you're incapable, that you are without focus, that you will be unable to pursue and to achieve the goals that God has set before you and has put in you to do. So let's be bold and let's be intentional. Let's be bold. Let's be beautiful in our pursuit of what God's purposed in your heart. Look, it's June of 2026. It's not too late. You're not, the year isn't just half over. We're halfway there. Okay. We're in the middle. So are you a cup that's half empty or a cup that's half full person? Let's take the fullness. Okay. Let's take the fullness of the time that God has given us because it will move whether we move or not. Right? Time is going to keep going. The days will keep coming whether we're in them or not. And as long as God has given you breath in your body, my goodness, you have opportunity. You have opportunity to keep moving forward. So I want you to pray, and I'll be praying with you, is that God gives you discernment, God gives you strategy, God gives you the capacity to complete what He's purposed in your heart to do. I know without a shadow of a doubt that God has given you strength to live life boldly because that's what we do. So have a great week. God bless you. Thank you for joining me.